good to be here with you all. We got a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to get us started. I'm going to invite you tonight to really, hopefully, if you don't have your chart with you, get your chart out. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about how to look at the transits so you can understand how they're going to impact your chart personally, in addition to also talking about some of the planetary themes that are up for all of us tonight. Well, not just tonight, for the next few years. Okay, there we go. So, for those of you who I have not had the privilege of connecting with yet, my name is Dr. Karen Parker. I'm the founder and creator of Quantum Human Design and the Quantum Alignment System. I'm a multiple best-selling author. I've written multiple best-selling books and one of the world's top-selling human design authors. I have a PhD in integrative medicine. I have been an energy psychology practitioner and an energy healer since 2000. I have been a life coach since 1998. You all start doing the math. I studied with and worked for the founder of traditional human design, Ra Uru Hu. I've been teaching human design since 1999. I'm a Quantum University guest lecturer, TEDx presenter, the host of the Quantum Revolution podcast. I'm an Omega Institute Shift Network and Humanities Team faculty member, and I'm super, super excited just to let you know that next year on the Memorial Day holiday, I'm going to be at the Omega Institute again, leading an intentional storytelling with human design workshop. It's going to be super fun, so stay tuned for more details. The thing that I want to share with you all right now before I jump into content, the thing I want to share with you all tonight is that I want to welcome you. If you're new to us, if you've not been with us before, if this is your first Quantum Human Design webinar, I want to welcome you into our community. One of the things that I am the most proud of in the more than 25 years that I've been teaching and sharing human design is the community that we've built around human design. When you learn human design, you are learning sometimes a new vocabulary. Sometimes you're having to do things that are really brave and courageous to reclaim and own your authentic self. Sometimes you have to make new and hard decisions. Sometimes as you learn to trust yourself and follow your authority, you have to do things that other people, maybe people who you're very close to, judge. And you need community. We actually see it in the chart. We manifest faster when we have community. And so we have a lot of free resources and community for you. And one of the things I wanted to do for you tonight as we get started is just to let you know some of the free resources and some of the low-cost resources that we have for you. So the first thing that I just want to share with you, if you are brand new to human design, if you don't know anything about human design or you're just coming into the quantum human design ecosystem, we have a $27 class that's just for your type. It's a type-specific class. It's a short lessons, but it's very intensive lessons. It's a personal journey through your chart, and it's got all kinds of journaling exercises and contemplations with it. That program is $27. It's really an introduction to quantum human design. Tara's going to also post just a little brochure that we have that lists all the free resources and low-cost resources that we have for you as part of our community. That includes our Facebook group. We have a private offline but online circle community. It's not a social media platform. It's a private online community. It'll get you connected to our YouTube channel where we post weekly energy forecasts. So there's just a lot of stuff that you can get access to as part of our community. So I'm going to post that. Tara's going to post that for you. And I do want to let you know, if you want to start a human design business, if you are trained in human design and you're struggling to get your business up off the ground, I'm going to do some myth busting about human design and business and starting a human design business in a free course that I'm going to be teaching next week on July the 17th at noon Central. Again, if you're really getting excited and want some support in learning the 9 basic steps that you need to know to build a human design practice, that Tara's going to post the registration link for that free class too, and that's next. I think it's Thursday. I think the 17th is a Thursday, and that will be at noon Central. So just a couple of things to get you started and connected to our community and the resources that we have for you. Look, this is a weird time. It's a weird time, and I want to make sure that you can access all the support that you need to get, to get what you need during this really interesting and powerful and important transformative time. I also just want to share something with you really quickly. I have this yesterday, July the 8th, no, Tuesday, July the 8th, the anniversary edition of my very first human design book came out. It's Understanding Human Design. Some people know this as the Red Book. That was a 15-year anniversary edition. So there's a brand new, revised, and updated edition that is now available for sale anywhere major books are sold. And this is my new baby, August the 20th this year. My quantum wellness book is coming out. This is a book that is going to help you use human design as a storytelling tool to help you create greater wellness in your life. And that's not just about your body. That's about every area of your life. That's wellness in your finances, your relationships, obviously your body, your career, your spiritual fulfillment. So I'm sure Tara will have the links for those two for you all, just to let you know what's up. All right. Tonight, as I said, we're going to start first by going over how do the transits impact your chart. I want you to look at your chart, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can listen to the energy forecasts that we do every week, or how you can look at what's transiting in the celestial weather and how that impacts your chart. People ask me this all the time, so I thought this would be a good time for us to review so that you can start to really see what themes might be coming up for you personally, in addition to some of the themes that are coming up for us on the collective level. So when you look at your chart, anything that's colored in, we call it defined. That's energy that you have consistent access to. Doesn't mean you don't grow and evolve. You are growing and evolving that part. These are themes in your life that you're going to be playing with over the entire lifespan of your story. So your definition is consistent, it's colored in, it's what you're here to give the world, and it's also part of your soul curriculum. Anything in your chart that's white, we call that open or undefined. Anything that's white on your chart is where you're taking energy and information in from the world around you. Where we have white on our chart or openness in our chart, that's where we're taking it in and amplifying it. So we don't just experience it, we amplify it, and it varies. And it varies depending on who we're with and where we are, and also on the transits. So when certain planets move and highlight certain gates, it can also impact the open centers on our chart. Your openness, because we feel it so intensely, we oftentimes get confused and we think we are what's open in our chart. But your openness actually represents a lot of times the curriculum for your relationship lessons. And it brings you its own unique themes that you have to learn to play with and work with. So transits, when the planets move, they bring personal themes. And of course, those personal themes are going to be experienced in how you see the world. It's going to be experienced in what gets played out in the collective arena, what's on the news, what's happening in the world. And it, of course, impacts global themes as well. So you want to know, you want to understand how those transits are impacting you, and most importantly, what lessons the planets are bringing you as they move around the gates in the human design system. So let's talk for just a minute about how the transits connect with your natal chart. So on the left, this is an example of a natal chart. So this is the chart you were born with. This is the chart you run wherever you get your chart run. This is your chart. So hopefully get your chart out right now and look at your chart. And what you're going to see is that your chart, the planets when you look at the left numbers and the right numbers, those numbers represent the gates in your natal chart. We're not going to look at the decimal point to the right of the big numbers, so just ignore those for tonight. Just look at the whole numbers. Those represent gates, right? And when those gates are colored in, it means at the moment of your birth, planets were lighting up those gates. That was the position that the planets were in at the moment of your birth. On the right-hand side is a chart that represents the planetary transits on July the 7th. So these are last Monday's transits, right? So you'll see that the sun, which is the circle with the dot in it on the top, was highlighting the gate 53. The earth was grounding us in the gate 54. I want you to know that the transits are only calculated on the day that we're looking at. All right, so they're only calculated on the day that we're looking at in your human design. In your natal chart, remember there's two calculations on that chart. There's the day you were born, that's your soul purpose definition. And then there's the life purpose definition that actually drops in about 3 months before you're born or 88 astrological degrees prior to your birth. So you actually have two important calculations. But the transits, we only look at where the sun is on the day of the transit. Now, when we put these together, what you'll get is a chart that kind of looks like the chart in the middle. Now, I recommend that if you're going to start following the transits on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, that either memorize your chart or get a bunch of blank, copy out a bunch of charts because you can color this in. I've had students that have done this. They printed up their natal chart and they laminated it, and then using like dry erase markers, they would color in the transits for the day. I want you to pay attention. It's hard for me, gosh, it's hard for me to move my cursor in Zoom, but I want you to pay attention to the big triangle on the left side of the middle chart. So if you see the chart that has the yellow lines and the blue lines, notice that the triangle on the left-hand side, that's the spleen center or the self-awareness center in quantum human design. Notice that it's colored in. Now, if you go up to the top left tiny chart, that's the natal chart, and the tiny chart that's on the right-hand side is the transit chart. Notice that on the left-hand natal chart, that spleen center is open. It's white, right? And I want you to notice that it's also open on the right-hand side. But notice that when you see the open chart on the left-hand side, it has two gates hanging down from the bottom, right? Those are called hanging gates. Wherever you have a hanging gate in your chart, that's where you are designed to make connections with other people. We're always drawn to people who have the other half of a channel, right? We have half, we're always attracted to people who have the other half. That's an interesting configuration for us. Sometimes the planets bring us the other half. And so in this case, we'll see that in the transits, the planets brought the 54, which is the other half of the 32. And so that if you're looking at this chart in the middle and you see the spleen center, that's the triangle on the left, you'll see that there's a full channel connecting the spleen to the root center, which is the square at the bottom. You'll see that half of it is blue on the 32 and half of it is yellow on the 54. The yellow comes from the transit. The 32 is in the natal chart. Anytime a transit brings us a gate that fills in a channel, it's going to automatically give you the experience. It does not change your natal chart. This is important to remember because sometimes I hear people say, well, I'm a manifester for a year because of the transits. Your natal chart doesn't change unless you have like a near-death experience. Your natal chart is always going to stay the same. But in this case, if this was your chart, the transits would be bringing you a gate that would give you the experience, or you would feel like you had a defined spleen during this transit. Now, do you have a defined spleen? No. Does it make the openness and the amplification of the openness go away? No. But you will feel some of the themes of having a defined spleen because of the transit, which means in this case, because the spleen center is all about helping us learn how to regulate fear, that I would say, if this was my client, I would say during this transit, you're going to learn how to manage fear. You're going to probably get some fear triggered in you, courtesy of the planets, and you're going to have to learn how to regulate yourself. And that's the lesson that the planets are bringing you. So sometimes we have short-term transits. That's a short-term transit because that transit was brought by the gate 54, which is in the Earth, which the 54 being highlighted by the Earth is, in this case, is like a 6-day transit. But when we talk about some of the bigger planets that are moving, like Gemini, like Uranus, or like Neptune, or Pluto, those are very, very, very slow moving planets. And so when slow moving planets bring you a transit that gives you the flavor of having definition in a center that you normally have open, suddenly that becomes a really big long-term theme to be aware of. So I want you to be aware of that as we go through looking at some of the gates of Uranus and Gemini, that for some of you, that might be bringing you a long-term transit that's going to give you a long season or a long cycle in your life that's going to cause you to have some lessons in the center that might be picking up the flavor of definition courtesy of the transits. Now, here's something else to think about, something that I want you to really understand. And that is, if you have an open center and it's getting defined by a transit. So in that case, if we go back to this thing, if this person who has an open spleen is experiencing a transitory definition in her spleen center, that means that part of her lesson is to learn how to regulate herself, how to stay self-regulated in that energy center, no matter what's going on around you. Anything we have open in the chart brings us lessons of learning how to self-regulate. So if you look at your chart and you look at what do I have open, whatever you have open is what you are here to learn to self-regulate. That's where you are learned to hold on to your own perspective, your own baseline energy, no matter what's going on around you. So it's really good to understand when you get, a definition courtesy of the transits, and you know that everybody's having this theme playing out in their life and everybody's experiencing it differently. And maybe they're going a little bit cuckoo with it, right? That your job is to go, okay, cool. That's the transits. I don't have to bite the hook. I don't have to go down the rabbit hole with everybody. I can stay here in my own energy and self-regulate, right? That's your big lesson in your openness. And that's true whether it's coming in from the transits. That's true whether you're experiencing it from relationships. And no matter what, when you have these energies, your job is to learn to self-regulate in your openness. If you have something that's defined in your chart and the transit is already defining it, so you already have it defined, and the transits are also defining it. So what happens is that becomes a theme in your outer world. And now you're seeing this theme reflected back at you everywhere, right? Everybody's living out this theme. And suddenly it's feeling like, wow, this theme keeps coming up in my life. And the job that you have when your definition gets connected to other people's definitions, or your definition gets emphasized by the planet. So if a planet is transiting on something that you already have, the purpose of that transit is to teach you how to love and accept that part of yourself. Okay, so right now, for example, Neptune is transiting the gate 25. That is a gate that is on the G center. It is the gate where our higher purpose lives. And if you already have that 25 defined, then your job is to learn to love and accept your higher purpose, to not resist it, to not fight it, to not judge it, to not get up in your head with it, but to really, really learn to align with, love, and accept that part of yourself. All right, let's review briefly the themes that the planets bring us. So we really kind of have, and this is part of the thing that I really love about human design, because to me it's so simple compared to astrology, which still confounds me, honestly. I'm not a good astrologer, but I think I am at least sort of understanding human design a wee bit. When we look at the chart, you'll see, of course, on the right and the left-hand side, all the planetary symbols. Each one of those planets has its own theme. It's an archetype. If you think of it, my astrology teacher, my very first astrology teacher used to tell me that each planet is literally like a god in the sky, and they have their own personality, and they bring us themes that are based on their personalities, right? You used to tell me every night, if I'm having a trouble with a planet or a planetary theme, go out and pray to the planet. He was an amazing man. He was an amazing, amazing man. Each of these gods or these planets has its own theme or its own school or its own archetype that it lives up. So when we're looking at a transit, we're looking at the theme of the planet, and we're also looking at the theme of the gate that's being lit up by the planet, right? So in this particular case, you'll see that on the soul purpose side of the chart, the sun, which is the circle with the dot in it, is lighting up the gate 35, right? So that's telling me the theme of the sun, that school, right? If you think of the sun as a school, that school of the sun or the curriculum of the sun is being played out through the gate 35, which is also an archetype. So you get to kind of do some storytelling between the themes of the planets and the themes of the gates. So let's review for a minute just what these different planets bring. What is the curriculum that each one of these planets show us and help us understand in our natal charts and of course in the transits as well. So whatever is being lit up by the sun, and in human design, the sun moves through gates about every 6 days. So every 6 days, the sun moves into a new gate. The sun is yang, it's your output. Whatever the sun is highlighting is your outer expression. It's what you're here to give the world. So it's a big part of your life purpose in your chart. But you can't put that out into the world. You can't give your gifts to the world if you're not grounded, right? And so the earth tells us, what do you need to feel grounded? What do you need to feel stable? And so when the transits, the earth and the sun transit together, so the sun and the earth shift gates about every 6 days. And so when we look at the weekly energy report, we can look at the sun. That's what we're here to learn about. That's what we're here to give each other. The earth tells us, what do we need to feel grounded this week, right? So this week, um, God, I did the transit report this week and I have to go back and look it up. This week, the sun is highlighting the gate 62. Is that right? We're in July. No, the gate 39. Yes, I knew that. No, that's not right either. The gate 53, the gate of starting things. Okay, the gate 53. So this week, the sun is highlighting the gate 53. So we're all about starting something new, a new beginning, which is so perfect for this week because there's lots of new beginning energy this week. The earth is in the 54. We're grounded in divine inspiration. So we're not going to know what to start. That's the gate 53 until we get connected, right? Until we connect with source, until we find that divine inspiration. And that divine inspiration is part of what stabilizes us so that we're not going willy-nilly starting everything, but rather we're being very intentional and deliberate with what we start this week. The north node, the nodes move, every 3-ish months, not always consistently. But the north and south node, this is the south node, they travel together. We'll start with the south node because really the south node is the beginning, right? The south node is a theme. I like to say the north and the south node are the plot outline for the human story, the story that we're in. So right now, the story that we're in, the north node is in the 22, that's surrender, the gate of surrender. The south node is in 47, that's the gate of mindset. So we're actually being schooled by the nodes right now in the power of manifesting. We are being told by the nodes that we have to learn to regulate our mindset so that we can surrender and let go and trust the process, right? That's the overarching theme right now in the current celestial weather. So the south node is kind of the theme that we start out with over a season or a cycle, and the north node is what we're growing towards, right? So with the 47, we're starting off with getting our mindset in order, getting our internal house cleaned up so that we can move forward into surrendering and trusting the process. Now that same energy is also grace, and it's part of the stream of manifestation in the chart. The moon, which moves rather quickly, it goes through all 64 gates in about 28 days. The moon is what drives you. And sometimes when you're looking at your natal chart, if you lose connection to your motivation, sometimes the moon can help you find where you can find motivation for yourself from your chart. Mercury is all about communication, what we're here to talk about and share. And so when we look at what Mercury is transiting through, Mercury is going to tell us what we're all going to be talking about during whatever the Mercury cycle is. We're about to get ready to go through a Mercury retrograde cycle, right? So we're going to be getting an internal exploration about language and words and the power of our words. And then when it goes direct again, we'll get to rehash or revisit conversations that maybe we need to revisit that weren't quite the way we wanted them to play out originally. Venus, whatever Venus is highlighting is emphasizing what we value, and in particular what we value and love in our relationships. It's more of a personal planet. I would say Sun, Earth, Moon, nodes, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are what I would call the personal planets. They tend to affect our personal charts more. Obviously, they still play out in the collective. But your Venus is going to tell you a lot about what you value and what you really value and love in your relationships. Mars is kind of like where we have immaturity and sometimes impetuousness, and where once we mature and grow in our maturity, it's where we can use our youthful lessons as our way of teaching and a place where we lead others. So Mars represents lessons that we need to learn in order to mature so that we can become better leaders in our lives. Jupiter, now we start to hit the planets that I would say are the outer planets, the more collective planets, the slower moving planets, right? So these planets represent not only personal themes, they're still going to impact you personally, but they're also going to impact the collective landscape, the world around us, the news, the world, our communities. So Jupiter is where we get our blessings. Whatever Jupiter is highlighting is what's expanding and growing, and it's where we receive our rewards and our blessings. Now, I like to look at Saturn and Jupiter together as kind of a partnership. Saturn is our teacher. Whatever Saturn is lighting up brings us lessons, themes that we need to be working on. And sometimes Saturn is what we need to get rid of in order to be more effective. So if you think about in the ancient mystery schools of Alexandria, when they taught the process of alchemy, they would pray to Saturn. And Saturn was the energy that would burn away the dross, right? In that process of transforming coal to gold, metaphorically, it's Saturn that converts the coal into gold, right? It's Saturn that burns away all the excess. So sometimes Saturn clears the way, right, for us to be able to step into a more pure, a more aligned expression of who we are. So Saturn has this very powerful role of helping us clear away the things that are getting in our way, that are blocking us from receiving our blessings. So when we look at your natal chart, I always look at Saturn and Jupiter together, because what happens is when we do the work that Saturn assigns us in our curriculum, in our chart, the path for our rewards for doing that work is usually highlighted by Jupiter. Uranus, this is kind of where we're headed tonight. Uranus represents, this is a collective planet, slower moving planet, takes 7 years to move signs, right? Uranus is where you are different. So Uranus will be somewhat generational, but it's also going to tell you in your personal chart places where you are unique. Uranus has the job of oftentimes teaching us faith. Partially, the reason why Uranus teaches us faith is because Uranus oftentimes brings lessons in navigating the unknown or the unexpected. And oftentimes, what Uranus does, similar to Saturn, Uranus will pull the rug out from under us if we're headed in a direction we're not supposed to go. And oftentimes, when we outgrow something, Uranus is going to pull the rug out from under us, because things have to oftentimes get dismantled and disrupted in order for us to build something new. So oftentimes when Uranus sweeps through, Uranus is helping us evolve. Neptune represents a planet that highlights our spiritual theme. It's oftentimes veiled or kind of mysterious to us. So sometimes whatever Neptune is highlighting in your personal chart can feel kind of murky and something that you maybe sometimes struggle to connect with, because that's part of your lesson, is to learn how to pierce that veil and connect. And usually the path to connecting to whatever Neptune is lighting up in your chart is getting connected spiritually. And oftentimes your Uranus is going to tell you about your spiritual connection, your work, and your purpose. In the collective, Uranus is going to be telling us a lot about what's up for us collectively in our spiritual lessons, right? And as I said, like right now, I'm sorry, not Uranus, Neptune. Right now, Neptune is highlighting the gate 25, right? And so that's an energy where there's the potential for healing. So Neptune is saying we all need to heal, right? We're going to need to go through this healing season. Neptune on highlighting the 25 is also about saying, hey, you have to trust the process. You have to trust that you're supported by source and not lose faith and not lose connection to source. And Neptune highlighting the 25 is also saying, and you got to get connected to your higher purpose. You got to learn how to not eliminate the ego. The ego has its function, right? It's here to serve the higher purpose, but you can't let the ego run the show. You have to surrender to that higher purpose and trust that it's all unfolding the way it needs to. Now, I want to just say something, because this is really important before I go on. I want to remind you all that we're talking about archetypes, okay? The gates are archetypes, the planets are archetypes. Archetypes are part of the human story. And archetypes, and this is so important when we start thinking about the work that the planets are bringing us, right? The archetypes are not static. They're not black and white. They're not labels, which is one of the shadow sides of human design. It's very easy to take your human design and to start using it as a labeling tool. I'm a this line and this line, I have a this thing. Your chart is a map to how you process energy. It's a map to how you work in the world, and it represents a curriculum. And that curriculum is comprised of parts of a story. And it's up to you to evolve that story and to not settle for a static label. So think of it like this, right? When you think of a diamond, right? A diamond is it sparkles because it's got all these different facets and aspects to it. Every single part of your chart is like a diamond. And on a certain day, in a certain mood, or if you have an emotional wave, you might really relate to this part of the diamond. You might think, I'm a this, right? But you're not. You're all of it. You're all of it. And I want you to really contemplate and meditate and think on that. Because if you can grok that, if you can grok that, I really, it's going to give you so much power to transcend whatever is happening out here. If you can remember that you are all of it, not a piece of it or a part of it or a this or a that, that's really the work that Uranus is bringing us. And I'm going to flesh this out more in just a minute. But if you remember you're all of it, and it's okay to be all of it, there's no bad part of it. That if you're all of it and you can be all of it and you can play with all of it and you can consciously shift which part of it you want to experience and explore, you're going to liberate yourself from not just labels in human design, but you're going to liberate yourself from any system that seeks to codify you and stick you in a box. And right now, we don't belong in boxes anymore. Humans don't belong in boxes of any kind, anywhere, anymore, ever, right? And so I really I want you to get that. Your chart is a curriculum, and you can experience a whole spectrum of all the parts of that chart in multiple directions. And that means the high and the low, if you will. And you get to decide which part you want to experience and play with. All right. Okay. Hopefully that'll make more sense in a bit. Okay. Pluto. Pluto just shifted into the gate 41, where it's going to sit for a while, the gate of imagination, which is also the gate that the human design new year starts on. So we have this theme of Pluto being in this brand new cycle, right? Pluto is all about expansion, challenge. It's a generational pattern. It's where you grow, evolve, and transform through oftentimes death and rebirth cycles. Death and rebirth is a big theme of Pluto. Now, I want you to pay attention as I went through these outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. All of these planets kind of have a similar theme of seasons, cycles, evolution, growth, expansion. The whole curriculum of the universe is expansion and growth, right? We're here to grow and evolve. And of course, our final little exploration here, which we're not going to do too much on this one, but this is just for your benefit when you look at your own chart. Your Chiron, if you run a chart with me, and you run a quantum human design chart, which you can do at freehumandesignchart.com, which will come in the quantum language. I always have Chiron on the chart because I always look at Chiron because my clients tend to be people who are here on a spiritual path, and often a lot of them are healers. Maybe you relate to that. And Chiron is a place that teaches us about our own wounds that we have to heal so that we can then become better healers and better be able to help others heal as well. All right, so let's talk about what's up right now on the planet. And I think to do that, we have to really look at what has happened this year. It's been like astrologers are mind blown, right? It's been quite an intense year because one of the things that's happened this year that, is really, 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 really unusual and rare is that 5 outer planets have changed signs this year. Now, I say we're in training wheels mode. Because what that means is that planets, generally speaking, don't just change their sign and they're like, okay, that's it, I'm done, right? Usually they wobble a little bit, which is why when we start to look at major life cycles in your life, like a Saturn return or a Uranus opposition or a solar return, there's a little wobble in the themes, right? We don't just one day we're this and the next day we're that, right? We go through these seasons and cycles where as we move into new signs, there's kind of a back and forth, right? We have to finish up the work from the old cycle and get ready for the new cycle. And so it really isn't until 2026, kind of mid-year, like June-ish, that we kind of settle in to these major planets changing signs. So Jupiter is in Cancer. Now in July of next year, Jupiter will move into Leo. I want you just to notice that for a minute. Saturn moved into Aries. Neptune moved into Aries. Pluto moved into Aquarius, and Uranus now is in Gemini. Okay, these are longer term transits that are going to last a while. Now, the reason why I wanted you to think about next summer, Jupiter goes into Leo, is that Leo is a fire sign. Aries is a fire sign. Aquarius is I always want to say water, but it's not, it's air, right? And Gemini is air. There's a lot of fire and air in the longer term transits. And part of what's happening when we get fire and air, right? When you put oxygen on a fire, it expands, right? So a lot of expansive energy. Now, when we say expansive energy or sometimes explosive energy, right? Because sometimes that happens with oxygen and fire, we always think bad. I don't want you to think bad. I want you to think creative revolution, creative expansion, possibility and potential, because that's also what these energies are telling us that we are in a brand new cycle, a brand new season. And I would certainly say the one word that probably makes the most sense for us to use about to describe this season and this cycle that we're in is new. Everything is becoming new. It is a brand new beginning, a brand new chapter, if you will, in the human story. So let's talk about the latest shift. So Uranus moved into Gemini on Monday, July the 7th. Let's talk a little bit about Uranus in Gemini and what does that bring? Because it's definitely a transit that has been getting people's attention because it's a transit that historically is not always the most exciting transit in some cases, right? It's very exciting, but not always in a good way, right? So when we look at the themes of Uranus or the school of Uranus, think of Uranus as a school. Uranus highlights collective energy. Uranus is the god, if you will, in the sky god of rebellion, revolution, and innovation. As I said, Uranus has a tendency to give us sudden changes and twists and turns in the plot outline, so expect the unexpected. But ultimately, the twists and turns are about liberating us, breaking us free from limitations. And ultimately, whatever Uranus is highlighting is challenging us to break free from the status quo, right? Uranus doesn't want us to get too comfortable. Uranus is about individuality and even about progress. Gemini, this is the other school, right? So we're in the school of Uranus. We're in the semester of Gemini as our focus, right? We're in the Gemini semester. Gemini brings to us the themes of communication, mental agility, adaptability, curiosity, polarization. And I want you to just file that away for a minute because we're going to talk about that in a second. And it's ruled by Mercury. Now, before we go into this, I want us to think about for just a minute where we've been for the last 7 years. So for the last 7 years, Uranus has been in Taurus. So Uranus has been in Taurus from May 18, 2018 to July the 7th of this year, right? So let's just take a second for fun because this is mind-blowing, kind of. Make a list in chat of everything that has happened since May 15, 2018 to July the 7th, 2025, right? We've had COVID, we had a pandemic, we've had all kinds of stuff. Some of you got divorced, right? Big stuff has been happening. We've had polarization in the political arena, right? We've had breakdown of systems, right? Breakdown of systems, thank you for saying that, is really the piece that I want you to think about. Because Uranus in Taurus is really kind of a place where a placement that says, okay, everything that's not working, everything that we've outgrown, every system that's not working needs to come apart. In a way, when we look at it through the lens of systems theory, what's happened is we're at the end of a growth curve, right? We're at the end of a growth cycle. So growth, if we look at systems theory, growth curves go like this. They go up and they arc, and at the end they get to a peak, and then at the end they come down, right? When you get to the end of that growth cycle, things start to fall apart. Now there's another cycle that begins simultaneously, and there's an X, right? The new cycle comes in, and where the new cycle and the old cycle cross, the old cycle is dying, the new system is being born. That crossover point is really where we are right now, right? We're no longer sitting in the old story, and we're moving into the new story. And part of what happens in this X place where we are is there's a lot of tension, right? There's a lot of tension. And part of what happens in this tension is that you're going to get a group of people in this X part, in this crossover part, you're going to get a group of people who are going to want to go back to how things used to be, right? I don't like this new thing. I just want to go back to how things used to be. That's what conservatism is. And this isn't political. This is saying it's natural in a crossover point in a growth cycle for some people to want to try to go back to how things used to be. You can't. You can't. It might be temporary, but you can't, right? Once you outgrown a story, it's gone, right? You also have another group of people that are like, hey, let's just keep going. Let's go really, really fast. And they're not doing their homework, right? And they're trying to start new stuff, and it's all an experiment. So we have, those opposite forces kind of pulling against each other. And that's what I believe is sort of happening right now. We've got people trying to go back to how things used to be, systems coming apart, and people trying to move ahead without doing the homework, and it's chaotic. And really, now that Uranus and Taurus is over, Uranus and Gemini is coming in and giving us some new ways to start looking at how do we get this new system cycle up and running so that it's effective. And yeah, it is supposed to be gradual, right? It needs to be gradual, even though we might be impatient, right? That there's a certain divine timing to how the system growth process works. And if we try to jump ahead of ourselves, then we actually have the potential of destabilizing the changes at hand. All right, so let's talk about what are some of the things we might see with Uranus highlighting Gemini. Number one, we might see a revolution in communication. So radio networks, the last time Uranus was in Gemini, we had radio networks begin and we saw the first computer was created the last time Uranus was in Gemini. So I would say this is a season where we would and should expect disruptions and rapid changes in how we communicate. We've had AI, which is changing everything, right? The potential for new technologies and platforms to emerge, right? So lots and lots of potentials for us to continue to get connected, hopefully in healthier ways that create greater community and intimacy. I think Zoom is a pretty cool thing, actually. Although I would like to be able to give hugs, that would be better. Number two, we're going to see technological advancements. AI and other technologies will likely experience significant advancements and integration into our daily lives. And we're already seeing this. It'll be very interesting to see what else, right? And remember, when we're in the crossroads, right, and that cross point, the new advancements aren't always going to be good or bad, right? They're going to be new, which is different than good or bad, which means we're going to have to experiment to see what works and what doesn't. And I want you to file that away, because just because it's new doesn't mean it's adaptive, right? A mutation, not all mutations are adaptive, right? Not all mutations are good. That cancer is a mutation, right? Not all mutations are good. We have to experiment and explore and sort of compare and contrast and build enough data before we stabilize whatever is new. So don't get disheartened. We're not going to get swept away and get lost. And I also wanted to say, evolution takes time. I think somebody posted in the chat, gradual change. Gradual change. evolution takes time. And part of what evolution is doing as it's taking its time is it's gathering data to establish new patterns, and patterns take time. So even though we've seen so much rapid shifting and changing because we move at such an astronomical pace these days, and we're used to speed, it might not change as fast as you think. And it's okay. It's really okay right now, especially to take those pauses and those breaks and stay connected to your humanity and all those things that keep you grounded so that we don't get swept away by the rapid nature of all the changes. We're going to see shifts and changes in education and knowledge. Credentials and traditional ways of learning may be questioned or become obsolete as knowledge is accessed and shares in new ways. I absolutely believe that the educational system as we know it is coming apart, and that really, provided we do a good job of making sure that we don't lose any children in the process, is going to eventually be a really good thing. You know, we've got the micro school movement here in the United States. We've got, you know, innovative ways of bringing children into new ways of learning, and us as well, right? Look at us, we're all here on Zoom tonight. That's a new way of learning, right? That's a cool way of learning. We'll see changes in transportation and travel, new forms of transportation like self-driving cars or changes in urban mobility. I think changes in urban mobility is a very interesting topic for us to be contemplating and thinking about. And I would even say, quite possibly, even we might see that our idea of neighborhood and what constitutes a neighborhood is going to change. And with that, urban mobility will be part of that. Maybe it might not be technology. It might be that we create smaller, smaller communities with greater access to resources. Access to resources. This is all hypothesizing. We don't know, right? We're in the beginning. It's all new. Redefining speech and identity. This is huge. This is huge. And certainly I would expect to see at this crossroads where we are right now, issues around freedom of speech or censorship and the evolution of language as a prominent theme. So again, really looking at how do we talk, how do we identify, how do we speak, and certainly, you know, as I said, we get pushback, and there's a real push me pull you in this arena right now, and a lot of it is really a symptom again of old systems dying, an energy of us, of people wanting to go back to how things used to be, and recognizing that we can't once we know, we can't unknow, right? And certainly we could see a potential for mental health and information overload. The constant influx of information might require new strategies for managing attention and mental well-being. And I think that's going to be, you know, for any of us who are in the healing arena or the healing arts, if we're working with people, even at work, if you're a boss at work, really recognizing that people are overwhelmed and they're overloaded, and that this transit actually has the potential to go, okay, wait, we need to bring us back into a different expression of the human story. We need to get reconnected in a different way to stay healthier. We're going to see a theme of individual freedom and independence being highlighted. Well, the American Revolution started on this in a Uranus in Gemini transit, right? This whole theme of independence. So, by the way, did Haiti Revolution and the French Revolution. So, individual freedom and independence, Uranus and Gemini will bring a quest for independence and freedom. And I think it's going to invite us to have to explore some very interesting questions, like how do we stay true to ourselves in a community? You know, how do we hold on to our individual freedom and our independence in a community setting with different viewpoints and perspectives? I think we're going to see shifting power structures and a redefinition of power. And we go back and we look at where power lives in the human design chart. Power is not stealing, taking, usurping. Power is not force. If you've ever read David Hawkins' Power versus Influence, or Influence versus Power, I may have gotten that backwards. You know, when we talk about power in the human design chart, we see that we are powerful when we are unified in a common direction to serve the greater good. Democracy is the highest expression of the human story in the human design chart. That's where power lives, in our collaboration, in our co-creation, in community, in being together and unified. If we look at the history of Uranus and Gemini, and this is the part that I think has people a little bit freaked out, we'll see that in 1775 to 1783, we had the American Revolution and the birth of the United States as a nation. In 1861 to 1865, we had the American Civil War. And of course, this fundamentally reshaped the nation. This is all through, by the way, an American perspective. If we did a global perspective, which I apologize for not doing, you would see that these themes don't just apply to America, they apply to the world, okay? In 1939 to 1945, we had World War II. This period included the end of the war, the beginning of the Cold War, significant technological advancements like the invention of the computer and the rise of mass media. We also saw the formation of NATO, and people attempting to figure out how do we fix what we broke with World War II. So I want to bring us to what I believe is going to be the very most important theme of Uranus and Gemini, and that is deconditioning your internalized polarization. And I want to talk to you about this, okay? I want to talk to you about this because this is the work that we have to do right now. The world that we create is an expression of our inner world, individually, on a community level, and collectively, right? So when we are aligned internally, then we go out in our communities and we create alignment in our communities, and then we go out from our communities and create alignment on a global level. We are coming out of the end of an era, the era of materialism. And that's not just about stuff. That's about recognizing we're operating the world as if the world is it. There's nothing supernatural. There's nothing metaphysical. There's nothing quantum. There's just moving the mud of the planet, right? We have moved out of that era. In the late 1800s, with the advent of quantum physics, we've had to reframe our understanding of how the world works. But remember, evolution takes time. We're not there yet, right? We're still learning. And one of the things that has to happen that's an outcropping of materialism. Materialism thinks in formulas. It thinks in absolutes. Materialism has given us the gift of internal polarization, right? We think that we are this or that the world is either a this or that, rich or poor, good, bad, masculine, feminine, male, female, victim, perpetrator. And any place inside of us where we have a polarized perspective, including victim, right? Any place where we have a polarized perspective, the world doesn't care whether the quantum field doesn't care that whether you're thinking perpetrator or victim, good or bad, light, dark. What the cosmos is hearing is, oh, there's polarization. Let's manifest polarization because that's in response to the internal polarization. We're so flippin' polarized right now. And I actually think it's a good thing. It's not fun. It's horrible. There's so many innocent people being caught in the middle of the polarization, which we have to bring that to a completion as quickly as possible, please. And that polarization and that extreme polarization is actually, I believe, a symptom that we're about to unify, because we can't go too much further in this direction without recreating the history of what's happened in this season. And just because it happened before in a season doesn't mean it has to happen again. We can absolutely learn from the past, right? We can learn from the past. And really what quantum physics has taught us is that there is no this or that. Right? There is no this or that. There's not even a here or there in quantum physics. It's all around us all the time. And really, it's all, everything, both and. And the more we can start to look at any place where in our creative power we have polarized ourselves in any kind of identity, even male, female, whatever, any place where we have polarized ourselves, we're creating polarization in the world around us. So we have to absolutely depolarize, do that internal work to depolarize ourselves in order for us to move through and heal the outer polarization on the planet. And it's insidious, by the way. Internal polarization, wow, when you start really paying attention to it, start paying attention to it, where you have this or that thinking. Oh my gosh, it's very illuminating. All right, when we look at the Gemini gates in human design, look at where they're located, right? It's the gates of the throat center. So what we know about the throat center is the center for communication. It's also the center, so words and using words responsibly, using words to build the infrastructure for what's next is vital. That's the theme, right? Our language builds worlds. And when we are using those words correctly and in an aligned way, then we are using the power of our words to construct what's next. It's also the place where metabolism lives. And if we misuse this energy, we run the risk of burning ourselves out. We run the risk of feeling not heard or seen, being disempowered versus being empowered, feeling like we can't speak up. We are going into a season where we must find our voice. We will be playing with and exploring how do we tap into and find our voices. And we do that, first of all, starting with the gate 8, which we've already done with the gate 8 today. Gemini moved into the gate 20. But the first place that we start this season with is remembering that we are here to be relentlessly authentic. From that place, we then have to become patient and trust the process. That once we begin to speak our authentic self into existence, divine timing will handle the circumstances that will construct the outer reality that will allow us to step into the fulfillment of that divine self. We are being trained in this season to operate with enthusiasm, but not forget to do our homework. Don't run too fast into the future without making sure your foundation is strong. We will be learning from and teaching from our own experience and valuing our experience. We will be sharing what we have with each other. We will be connecting to higher source and speaking words that come through from higher source as channels, as divine conduits, ultimately creating, as we leave this era, a world that's rooted in compassion. So, really beautiful themes ahead of us. So, again, that gate 8 is the gate of fulfillment. I want to show you these gates in bigger format because I want you to look at these gates in the context of your personal chart and look at whether you have this defined or open. And I want you to look at, do you have this as an electromagnetic that's going to also bring a theme related to a center to you? Okay. I want you to look at what gets colored in. So I'll go through these. You can write these down. And um, if you get the Understanding Human Design book, it's in there. It's also in the Quantum Wellness book, but that's not available till August 20th. And also, of course, in our Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design. So the gate 8 is the gate of fulfillment. Gate 20 right here on the throat center. That's where Uranus is right now. Uranus is now highlighting the 20 as of today. Whew, right? Patience, patience. The gate 16, enthusiasm or zest. The gate 35, experience and wisdom. Wisdom from experience. The gate 45, distribution or sharing. The gate 12, where we connect to source, to speak divine words to each other. And the gate 15, kind of rounding us out here, the end of the season, moving into compassion, right? Where we share who we are and we share what we have with each other. I want to remind you as we kind of come to the end here, and I have an exercise that I'm going to give you at the end of this presentation. So please, I know I'm running a little bit over, but if you can hang with me here, I want to share this exercise with you. I want to remind you as we go through this that the planets don't create global events. We do. They create the themes, right? They set the stage, but it's us that's doing the creating. And so please don't blame what's happening on the planet on the planets. It's on us, and it's our obligation and responsibility to do our work, right? So the transit is a soul curriculum for the curriculum. We are building a collective story complex, and we have the capacity and the power to use our words to create peace and heal our inner polarization. And it starts with each and every one of us individually. So I just want to share with you, I recently, this past weekend, somebody in our community passed away. A beautiful, beautiful woman passed away. Amazing woman. And I was thinking as we went to her funeral, you know, that her story, the story of her life, even though she doesn't physically exist in that story anymore, that story has now gone into a beautiful vault. I'll call this the collective story vault. And everything that this woman created with her life, everything that was the story that it was this woman, now lives in this collective story vault as a possibility for all of us. When we shift and change our own stories, when we fulfill the full potential of our stories, not only do our lives get better, not only do we add more to our community and our collective, but we add an element of possibility to the collective story lab because somebody else did it. We can do it. We can experience vicarious post-traumatic growth. We can experience miracles based on the possibilities that come from other people's stories that live in that collective story vault. Our stories are so essential, and you fulfilling the full potential of your story. And that's something only you can do in this entire freaking cosmos. Only you can do that. Every time you push the boundary and the edge and stretch into the fulfillment of your potential, you add to the possibility that lives in that collective story vault. And the more of us that do this work, and the more of us that really embody the energy of both and peace and abundance and sustainability and healing and wholeness, and the more we put these stories in the story vault, the more we create a soup, a matrix of possibility, right, for the rest of the world. So, your human design chart is a storytelling tool. This is just a quick flash. I can't go through it. This will be what I'm going to talk about in August. But I wanted to show you that the parts of your chart represent parts of your story. Your resiliency keys, that's an element that we teach in quantum human design. That's the goal. That's where you're headed. That's what you want to, that's your optimization. Your type is the main character in your story. Your authority in your chart represents your healing path, how to get back reconnected to yourself. Your profile represents characteristics of your main character. The configuration of your centers and gates are your sacred flaws. You're learning your soul curriculum, what you're here to learn through, to grow through, to become mature through in order to maximize the full potential of your chart. So, what will you create? Speak it, be it, bring it into form. Unify your story with the stories of others. Let's shift the ancient narrative stories in our collective story vault. And if you want to learn how to do that for yourself or for others, I do just want to share with you that our Quantum Human Design Specialist Certification training is on sale. It is an online self-paced learning program. You can learn at your own pace. We've got a community, a huge community of students and practitioners and specialists who come together weekly on live calls to get your questions answered. We've got a lively, thriving online community. We have monthly programs like Chart Chat Live where you can go and practice learning how to read a chart. We've got 4 levels of certification. We've got online self-paced learning. Each level has a series of instructional videos and slides and additional student resources. As I said, every week we have a live virtual forum where you can attend online and submit any of your questions, get live support for your questions, bring case studies, meet other people, share with other people your own experiences. Once you become certified as a level 1 practitioner or specialist, you can begin using quantum human design as a business. And of course, as you grow and build your business, you can go deeper and dive deeper into your training. All levels of the training are self-paced except for level 4, which has an additional, I think it has an additional 16 live calls that are just for level 4. That's where you learn the art of chart reading, how to look at a chart through life purpose, money, relationship, etc. And those have weekly Zoom calls with me where we go through practicum sessions and work with teammates, us, other fellow students. So we have a 22% off offer, 22% off all of the bundles of training. So level 1, level 2 is 22% off. Levels 1 through 4 is 22% off. Use the coupon code EMPOWER. I'm going to mail all this to you, so don't worry about it. But I'm putting this there because the coupon does expire on July the 14th at midnight. And we have a Quantum Human Design catalog or the webpage above if you want to get more information. We'll post that for you in chat as well. So, okay, here's what I've got for you though. I want you to think about what do you need, first of all, to grow and evolve in this season with Gemini. And I want you to think about the fact that you've been growing and evolving. You've been growing and evolving in 7-year cycles since you got here, right? Since you got here. And so one of our quantum teammates, a member of Team Quantum, Cass, who is really an amazing, thoughtful, beautiful, creative person, put together this timeline for you to help you explore and think about and heal, perhaps, some of the themes that you might be going through in these 7-year cycles that you've been in. So I want you to, the way you're going to do this, and we're going to put the link to this exercise for you, is when you open up the exercise, it is a PDF fillable worksheet. So you don't have to print it up. If you don't have a printer, you can still do it. There are 2 pages on this worksheet. Page 1 is an example. Page 2 is the PDF fillable version, so you're going to fill it in for yourself on page 2. So you want to intentionally set some time aside for yourself and find a quiet and comfy space. Maybe light a candle, grab your favorite tea, put on some solfeggio frequencies or your favorite music. Take a deep breath as you do this exercise and just connect with your heart and just begin filling in the things that happened in each of these 7-year cycles of your life, starting with the year you were born. And then under each cycle, you just list out in abbreviated form a summary of the things or the situations or the lessons or the themes that kept coming up for you during that 7-year cycle. And then just fill out each life cycle, right? And get all the way up until the current life cycle that you're in. And then just take a moment and stand back and marvel at your strength, your resilience, and everything that you've experienced, right? You've seen some stuff and you've made it, right? And you're not a survivor anymore. You're not in that survivor, not survivor polarization. You're now in thriving, right? Thriving is both and then some. So send love, send grace, send compassion, or even forgiveness to all these versions of yourself or anyone else that was involved in your life during those seasons of your life. And allow healing as you release any narrative that's coming up for you or old identities that came up for you during these seasons that are no longer serving you. And then remember that you're not the things that you've done. You are not the things that were done to you. And this is not the truth of you are. This is just your curriculum. This is just an outline of what you were here to learn and what you were growing through. Now you get to decide in this next season, what are you going to create? What are you going to do with this powerful season of reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your authentic self, reclaiming your power, and using the story of who you are to not only serve yourself and your community, but the world? I want to thank you all for joining me tonight, for giving me the honor of sharing the evening with you. I really appreciate your attention, your kindness, your comments, your presence, your willingness to expand and to learn. Thank you all for joining me. I hope we've given you, and I say we because none of this happens without Team Quantum. There's so much that happens behind the scenes here at Quantum Alignment System or Quantum Human Design. We've got people putting together the slides. Aren't they gorgeous? We've got people running all and pushing all the buttons, running all the tech, putting up all the web pages, doing the replays, making sure everybody gets what they need. It's an amazing team effort. So thank you to Team Quantum for making this happen. And thank you all for being here tonight and sharing with us. I apologize for not getting to your questions. Please, please, please join our circle community and post your questions there, or join our Facebook community and post your questions there. Take care of yourselves. Bye.